Are we ready, Yagami-san? Let's start with our visit to Mamiya-san, if that sounds reasonable.
Yeah, let's start there.
So, the victim's story is completely in line with her court testimony, huh?
That's correct. There wasn't anything new to pick up.
Unfortunately.
In which case, should we look into the murder video instead? Like, figure out how they made it?
Let's not get ahead of ourselves here. Whether that tape's fake or real, someone had to put it online, right? Do we have any theories on who that might be?
Well, the footage showed enough of the surroundings to make the crime scene clear. As somebody who's been there, I can confirm that the blood splotches match what you see in the footage. Which means... those detectives for Kanagawa. They'd spoken with Saori-san about the case already, right? Maybe they uploaded the murder video, so they could get to Ehara and question him about Mikoshiba. But don't forget, up until the video went public, HQ refused to let Kanagawa PD anywhere near Ehara, so they were totally cut out of the loop. But now that everyone's seen Ehara commit murder, the time for department competition is over and done with.
If that's the case, the detectives' plans went south. Remember the position the higher-ups are taking? Because of the prosecution's stance on the video, the police can't make a move. In other words, all the detectives would have done was make it harder to question Ehara.
Not only that, don't you think it'd be way too risky for a police officer to leak that sort of video?
Yeah, I doubt the detectives did it. But at least we've eliminated one potential misstep. We're that much closer to the right answer.
I get that you're trying to reassure me, but it's actually just making it worse.
Is it? Then the plan's going great.
The murderer's accomplices have to be the ones who posted it for him.
Yeah, I can't see it any other way.
I also agree with Yagami-san.
But in that case, what would their motive be?
Maybe they wanted to make a mockery of the police, or even the whole system.
Huh?
We know Ehara got himself convicted for groping, so he'd have an alibi for Mikoshiba's killing. But then, his conspirators turned it around by uploading the murder video online. Almost as if to say, look how he got away with it.
I see. Yeah, that does make it sound like he's taunting them.
That's well and good, but I'd like to shift gears. Let's talk about the actual fabrication of the video. How does one go about that?
Well, for example, the true culprit would be taped murdering Mikoshiba. Then Ehara's face would be copied and blended onto the killers. That's how they'd approach it in a Hollywood movie.
But then, wouldn't you be able to see traces of it being faked?
Tsukumo-san reported that he's found nothing of the sort in his analysis.
We've been down this road before. If we take the stance that the footage is fabricated, we have absolutely nothing to work with.
Then let's tackle this from the stance that the video's actually real. If that's the case, there has to be a flaw in the groping issue. I think we've collected enough evidence to find it too.
Before meeting with Yui Mamiya, didn't you mention the possibility of Ehara using a stand-in? Perhaps the real Ehara murdered Mikoshiba in Ijincho, then swapped places with the imposter so he could be detained.
But we couldn't find an opportunity for the swap to happen, remember? From the moment he set foot on the Ikebukuro platform, Ehara was constantly on camera.
But wait, that's not entirely accurate, is it?
Huh?
What do you think this evidence indicates?
Ehara's transit card. That just shows he passed through the Ikebukuro station gate at 7:43 a.m. Its timestamp matches the security camera footage, so we know it's accurate.
Then, if Ehara committed the murder at 7:30 a.m. in Yokohama, no way he could have made it to Ikebukuro 13 minutes later.
I think we're all aware of that by now.
Okay, hang on. Let me start from the top again. Remember how we mocked up a diagram of the Shinjuku station platform?
Yeah. Oh, wait! That's it! You could be onto something. There's a point where Ehara wasn't on camera at all.
What is this point you speak of?
Let's all go over the diagram so that everything will be clear. Here's what I want you to see. Suspicious. It's very brief, but there's a moment where Ehara and Mamiya-san can't be seen by the security cameras. The dotted lines on the arrow represent the camera's blind spot.
It does appear so. So you're saying this is where the groper, the fake Ehara, traded places with the real one?
Can't say it's impossible, right?
Right. Except if that actually happened, Mamiya-san would have been right behind them at the time. Could the two really swap places without her noticing?
In a crowd like that, I think it's feasible.
If that really was Ehara's plan, then I'd say he was being careless.
Careless? How?
Well, on the day of the incident, the station was packed for morning rush hour. That means there was no solid guarantee the assailant could make the switch. He could have been nailed by any random passerby before reaching the blind spot.
Good point. Not only that, if Mamiya-san had called for help while the train was still moving, then the first Ehara would have been caught before even reaching the platform.
Oh, I mean, yeah! Called it.
Think about it, Yagami-san. Why would Ehara's accomplices meticulously plan out every last detail of this alibi, only to leave such a crucial component to chance, as Hoshino-kun pointed out?
Oh, just doing my job.
True. Good work, Hoshino-kun. In fact, I think that may back up my own take on it.
Yeah?
What if everything, including the appearance of leaving the plan to chance, was part of the plan?
Can you expound on that?
I'm saying I agree that such an airtight alibi wouldn't have allowed for contingencies. And that takes the question to another level. Just how far did they line up the pieces in advance to make the swap work?
Are you saying there's more to it than we discussed? What did we miss?
Every last bit of footage, from the eyewitness recordings to the security cameras, was fabricated by the prosecution. If that's the case, the blind spot we found is irrelevant. That's because the real footage of Ehara tagging in for his double is all but lost to us now.
Why would the prosecution go to all that trouble? To hide Mikoshiba's murder?
Or maybe they sympathized with Ehara's plight?
You're saying his court adversaries orchestrated an elaborate cover-up out of sympathy?
All right, I realize that's a stretch, a huge one. No need to burn me at the stake.
Was that all? You made it sound like you had this whole thing figured out.
No, hang on. Something just hit me. Ehara secured his alibi for the murder by swapping with a stand-in at the Shinjuku station blind spot. For them to be able to pull that off, a certain possibility comes to mind.
Right, so what exactly would that be?
I know this won't go over well, but what if Mamiya was colluding with Ehara all along?
Huh?
Bear with me. Let's say Mamiya was in on this and knew about the imposter in advance. If that's the case, the swap could happen right in front of her and no one but the three of them would know.
You're saying the victim of a groping conspired with her assailant beforehand? That's ridiculous.
Let me just say, I'm only trying to work out how a swap like that would be guaranteed to work. Now, if Ehara and his stand-in both know that Mamiya will pretend not to have seen them, they can trade places in the blind spot with impunity. Conversely, if Mamiya wasn't in on the plan, the idea of a swap would never work. We can say with certainty that she would have seen the swap, so... She could have even called attention to the real Ehara the moment he stepped in. That way, the people around her would be focused on chasing the correct assailant. The rest is as we know it. They caught Ehara and detained him until the police showed up.
Hold that thought. If your theory is accurate, what about Ehara's trace evidence? Remember that fibers of the victim's underwear were detected on his hand.
Well, that can also be explained by Mamiya being in on the plan. For example, while the stand-in was showing himself at the security cameras, Mamiya could have easily provided Ehara access to a pair of underwear at the same time. Maybe the stand-in loitered around for so long because he was letting everyone else get themselves in place.
It's not impossible.
We can work out the other details later. But the point is, Ehara's murder alibi is shot if Mamiya was involved. In summary, it's possible Ehara disgraced himself to secure an unshakable alibi for Mikoshiba's murder.
I'll concede that it's an avenue worth pursuing.
And when it comes to the prosecution, they can't just admit they got the first case so wrong. Plus, they can't question Ehara about Mikoshiba's murder. In fact, their only option is to claim the tape was faked.
So he managed to make a farce out of the system after all.
Well, his court case for his son's bullying did get more or less thrown out, didn't it? The school, the investigative committee, and the court all agreed there wasn't enough evidence to convict anyone. No surprise for me that the guy held a grudge against the system for so long.
Hold on. Before we all decide on this,
What's up?
the obvious question to me is why would Mamiya be party to such a crime? She appears more than financially stable, and she's even raising a child. So why would she do something so enormously risky as helping establish a murder alibi?
Yeah, I haven't gotten that far yet. But maybe she was promised something that far exceeds the risk. Or maybe Ehara has some kind of dirt on her even?
Enough to make her help with a murder? What sort of secret would be big enough to force someone into that corner?
What info do we have on Mamiya anyway? Maybe we can spot a connection to Ehara through her profile.
I'll pull her information. Just a second.
Oh, I just thought of something else those two would have guaranteed by working together.
What's that?
If Ehara wanted to use this crime as a murder alibi, he needed it to blow up into the public eye. But if he had chosen a victim who stayed silent, then nothing would have come of it. A solid plan would need to eliminate that variable, which means Mamiya being an accomplice was crucial to Ehara's success.
That's true.
Looks like Ehara pulled one over on the prosecution then. Had his accomplices right where he wanted them, even his victim. Once we learn how he's connected to Mamiya, we can root out the rest of his team.
Let's see. According to her file, her maiden name is Yui Suzuki. 30 years old, so that's consistent. Originally from Ota, Tokyo. Attended a private high school called Kurakawa Academy. Later graduated from Toto University.
Huh.
Met her husband on the job, apparently. Her husband, Taichi Mamiya, is an industrial designer at Techno Zeta Inc. 6 years ago, she gave birth to their only son, Sota-kun, who's now in first grade.
Hold on. You said she went to Kurakawa Academy? I heard that name in Ijincho. If I recall correctly... Didn't I just go there to investigate a bully? Or am I losing it?
That Seiryō High you went to?
That's what it was. Why did I think they sound similar? When I went to scope out the murder scene, there were these 3 guys watching the detectives and me. They told us they were just checking things out, but they mentioned they're Kurokawa grads too.
You have any ID on you?
Will my license work?
Akake-san, age 30.
Akaike-san, age 30. Mommy is 30 as well.
What's that got to do with anything? Aren't we trying to find a connection between Mamiya and Ehara?
I found the Kurokawa Academy website. Looks like they're pretty prestigious. It's in Tokyo, specifically in Ota. Pretty close to where Mamiya lived. Oh,
What?
the girls there get such cute uniforms.
You little... You want to start all over from the bar exam?
Wait, I've seen that uniform before too, actually.
Where?
On an old picture of a teacher at Seiryō High, Sawa-sensei. Ehara's son confided in her. Is she actually a Kurokawa grad too? I don't know Sawa-sensei's exact age, but she could well be 30. Maybe all of them are even classmates.
Could this mean they're actually linked? The victim and her up-to-now unrelated assailant?
It's a tenuous link at best. Could fall apart any time. But no true detective alive would pass it up.